Hey guys, today we're doing another video demoing some of the features of the data ins in Utopia. Today we are taking a look at the listeners. As you can see on the left hand side of my screen, you can see my integration hub, and on the right hand side you should be able to see my transactions page. We can see we still have our demo data in that we created in an earlier video. Let's just click on edit, and we can see that some of the parameters are still enabled: active, ignore duplicates, generate transactions, maintenance, sample data, batch field, and identifier field. Today we are moving over to the listeners section of the data in. With the listeners, we have three listeners that are available in Utopia's API creation. You can create listeners to allow external systems to communicate with the collections via a REST API endpoint. Instead of using a source connector to fetch data, allow data to get posted via an API or indeed queried. So we will go to listeners in the data in, click on the plus icon, and this will bring us to the listener creation dialog. Here we have title, which we will give a name to our listener. Let's just call it demo listener. Then we have two toggles here. One for active, works exactly the same as how the active toggle works on the data in, and so with the maintenance works similar to the maintenance task on the data in this case, every interaction with these endpoints of the listener get logged. This is useful for things like fault finding, to find out what configuration the external system is using if it's not working successfully. However, this does create a lot of data, and we can use this maintenance task to archive this information during the system maintenance job that we spoke about in the maintenance job of the data in. So let's just make this active, and as you can see we have two drop downs here, one called module, one called security. Let's look at module now. So like I said earlier, there are three listeners available under Utopia's API creation. The first would be the document capture. This listener will capture data that has been posted into the API endpoint. The document query and the document query integrated we will look at a bit later, but for now let's focus on the document capture. So let's click on the document capture, and let's look at security. So security is here in order to secure the traffic moving between these requests. As you can see, we have two tabs here. The first is HTTP headers. This can add any header information you require to either secure your connection or to make it easy to connect, or for example to mimic another system to speed up the integration project. And the next tab is whitelisting. You can use this to lock down communication to a specific external IPs, add and remove IPs with the plus and the minus buttons. This is the same for the HTTP headers as well. So we aren't making use of the HTTP headers or whitelisting for now. We have selected the document capture module for the listener, and this would be your endpoint. You can just click on this to copy it. Let's click on save, and let's save the data in. And as you can see, it says data in has been saved. Okay, so let's click on our data in. Let's click on create transform. As we can see, our transform has no data in it. So let's go to our data in, let's go to our listeners, and let's click on our endpoint, and we can see our listener is active and the maintenance is active. We did select the document capture. Let's click on save and let us save once more. Now let's bring up our postman and let's create a new call. Let's paste our URL here. We did not set any headers, so we don't need to adjust anything further. Parameters, we don't have any currently. Now please take note. So as we can see, we have posted our API link right here. Like I said, we have no parameters and no headers. Now please take note that Utopia is installed on my local machine, so we would remove the third party API for the purposes of this demo and add, so like I said, because this Utopia is installed on my local machine, we would add localhost and the port number on the setup, and my endpoint would look as so. Now let's go back to our Utopia, and as we can see, we're checking once more, there aren't any documents in our data in. So let's go back to our postman and let's go to our body. Remember, we are posting this document via a listener into our data in, so we need to add our document to this. I do have a sample data similar to the data that we used in the previous videos, and let me just paste this. It does pick up that it is in the JSON format. Let's just beautify it, and we can now click send, and we got a 202 accepted status. So now let's go back to our data in and check if the data is there. Okay, so let's click on our data in, let's click on create transform, and as we can see, they have come through. Let's go back to our postman to confirm what we posted, and we can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents. And let's compare to what's in our data in. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as you can see, the transactions came through accordingly. Now let's just make one change to our listener, and we can go to security, we can add an HTTP header, and let's say authorization, and let's make it Damien, and let's click on save, and let's save the data in. Let's just go back to our data in to make sure that the settings have been saved. Module, document capture, that is correct. Security, HTTP headers, authorization, and Damien. Let's just copy this, and then we can just go to our postman. So as you can see, we are back in postman, and let's look at our few docs that we have here. So let's just post one doc in for now. As you can see, we have one doc. Let's adjust the customer PO number so that just this gets accepted into the collection 08. And remember, we added the headers, HTTP headers, to this listener. So let's try posting this without adding the headers, and let's see what happens. Let's click on send, and as you can see, we get a 401 response, unauthorized. And let's just go back to confirm in our data in that no new doc has come through. Now click on the refresh the transactions, nothing has come through. As you can see, it's still 5 docs that remain in the data in. Let's go back to our postman, and under headers, let's add a new one and call it authorization, and add the authorization key Damien, and go back to the body, and let's click on send once more. We got a 202 status. Let's go back to our data in and check. Let's refresh our transactions page. It hasn't come through on the transaction page as yet. Let's create transform, and as you can see, a few seconds ago the new doc has come through that has been posted through the listener, and that is the correct PO number. So refresh the transactions page, and as we can see, it has come through correctly. And guys, that is how we make use of the document capture listener function in the data ins of Utopia. Okay, so we just completed the document capture of the listeners in our data ins of Utopia. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the document query external. So as you can see, we have our listener creation dialog open. Let's call this demo document query external, and let's just make this active. Let's just turn on the maintenance, and let's select the document query external as the module, and we can just save this, and let's save our data in. Data in is saved. Let's go back to our data in. Let's make sure that it is there. Let's refresh. Okay, it has saved. The document query external. The listener will serve GET queries with the required data and allow external systems to provide their own query structure during the API call. Here, any simple GET query on the endpoint will result in a full collection data to be served. However, a document can be posted into this listener to explain to Utopia how you would like the results. Okay, so let us copy our document external query API, and let's bring up our postman. And this was the previous call that we made, so let's just create a new API call. Let's post in our URL, and like in the previous one, I've set it, our Utopia is installed on our local machine, and we will need to use localhost instead of third-party API, and the port number, and that is the API call. We are using the get, and now we can just test this by clicking send, and we have got some docs back from our data in, and we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 documents. Now let's go back to our data in to confirm that there are 6 documents in the collection. Let's click on our data in, create transform, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is correct. Like with the data capture listener, we can also add security here, HTTP headers, and whitelisting as well. Let's look at the HTTP headers for now, and let's just add an authorization, and the header value, let's just add my name. Let's click on save, and let's save the data in. Okay, let's go back to our data in just to make sure that the settings have saved correctly. Okay, they are there. Let's go back to our postman and let's do the API call once more, and we have a 401 unauthorized. Let's go to our headers, let's add authorization, and let's add our value, and let's click on send once more, and we've gotten our docs back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 of them. But let's take a closer look at our docs. As we can see, it's just coming back with the order data itself, with just the customer PO number, barcode, branch, date, price, line information, and such. But remember, I did say earlier that a document can be posted into this listener to explain to Utopia how you would like the result. So we can add an example here to our body. Okay, we have come to our body. Let's click on the raw button and let's post our body. Let's just minimize the results, and as you can see here, I just dropped in a small file, and let's just click on beautify to align it. So if you take a look at what I've added in this body, we have an include header. This is a boolean field to include document system metadata. This can be either true or false. If true, this will bring back the documents in that collection with the header data, which consists of the created time and date, the document hash, and the metadata of each order. And the filter definition, this is essentially you including a Mongo filter definition here to filter out the required docs. And we have a sort as well. You can use the sort to sort your results using any particular field. Um, this would be an aggregation pipeline to manipulate the output data to suit your needs. And for the purposes of this, let's just set this to false for the purposes of this demo. Let's make that false. Let's change the object ID to one of the object IDs in our document collection. Okay, and this is a greater than, so this will bring through all documents that are greater than this object ID, and we are sorting by the underscore ID field and in one, so this will bring up the oldest document first. If you would bring up the latest document, you will go -1. Let's do 1 for now, and let's click on send, and we only got 1 doc back because this is the second doc in the collection, and we're doing a greater than, so it's only returning 1 doc. If we had to do a less than, we would get 1, 2, 3, 4 docs, which is correct. And as we can see, let's look at the first doc. It returned 001. Let's change the direction of the sort, and you can see 004 is now first. Now let's change this to a true, and this should bring back all the docs with the header information of each document. So click on send, and as you can see, this is now 1 doc, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at the first doc. This is the order itself, and this is the document metadata with the underscore ID, the grid, the hash, the created on time and date, updated on time and date. And that is how we make use of the document query external listener in Utopia. Now we will be moving on to the last listener, which is the document query integrated. Like before, on the left hand side of my screen you can see my integration hub, and on the right hand side you can see the transactions page. So for this example, we created a new data in called demo data in2, and I have another data in called demo mapping. So this is essentially a mapping collection. You can see what's in the collection. It's basically some products, and inclusive of that we can see some pricing as well, and the product's name and the price list ID. Let's go back to our data in. We can see some of our parameters have already been enabled, and I have added an identifier field for our orders. So let's go to the listener tab. Let's click on plus. Let's create a new listener called demo document query integrated. Let's make this active. Let's turn on maintenance, and module, let's select the document query integrated. We will leave this as null for now, and let's just click save and save once more. And as you can see, it has been saved. The document query integrated is a different type of query. Using this query, a defined query can be built behind the endpoint in Utopia. External systems can then service the endpoint with optional parameters, and results can be served accordingly. So let's go back to our data in, and let's go back to our listener that we just created. And as you can see, this is a bit different from the document query external. So here we can add a query, and for the example that we are using, I am going to add that in now. So let me just add this in right now. Just paste that in. As you can see, it is a fairly complex query. Here the external system would add the parameters customer code and price list ID to the get call. Utopia will then receive the parameters and execute this pipeline. The parameters get specified at the end. It can look a bit intimidating, but for this example, this data in orders are being posted into this data in. Orders are being posted into this data in, and this query will now run, and it will pull all of the most ordered products specified by that specific customer code. So let's save our listener, let's save our data in, and let's just check by creating a transform of our data in. There isn't any data currently. So let's go ahead and post a document, and the document has been loaded. Let me click on upload. The document has been posted. Let's create a transform of our data in to view if the docs are there, and the docs have been posted. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 docs in this data in. So refresh our transactions page, and as you can see, there are 6 docs available. Let's go back to our data in. Let's go back to our listener. Let's copy this endpoint, and let's go to our postman. Okay, so we can see our postman here. We have posted our endpoint. Like I said in the earlier video, because Utopia is installed on my local machine, we have to remove the third-party API and add localhost followed by the port number. And we can now test this. But before we proceed to test, let's check our data in, and we can just create a transform. We can confirm that there are 6 docs. Let's go back to our postman and let's click on send. And you could see it comes back with 200 response, but it does not come back with any response. It comes back with a 200 status. What we can do is we can add our parameters, which is the customer code and the price list ID. Our customer code that we are querying for would be that number, and the price list ID would be 3. And if we click send, this should bring back the frequently ordered products by this customer code, and as we can see, there are 3. And like the other listeners, this can be used with the security features of the HTTP headers and the whitelisting. Let's add the HTTP header authorization, and let's make the header value Damien. Let's click on save. Let's save the data in. Let's just refresh our integration hub. Let's go back to our data in to make sure that this did save correctly, and it did. Now let's go back to postman, and if we try to click send once more, it should say unauthorized. Correct. So let's go to headers. Let's add our authorization and our value. Click send once more, and it will come back with the frequently ordered products for that specific customer code. So that is how we make use of the document query integrated listener in Utopia.